morning.
Good morning.
My name is Christine Cali Sanchez, and I am the Assistant Director of the Miami, Florida European Youth Center of Excellence at FIU. And by now, you have concluded two things. One, that I am European, and two, that I am French. I would like to thank you for being here, and I would like to thank Caroline Rendezvous, especially CEO of the Miami Innovation Center, for allowing us to use today these magnificent facilities to hold our seminar. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, because your center is great, and we want to show to our guests today what we do here in Miami. I would like also to thank, to acknowledge the presence of our European Consular Corps in Miami. This morning, we are honored to have among us the Honorable Consul General of France, Mr. Philippe Trigard, University that we met, the Honorable Consul General of Germany, Mr. Jürgen Borsch, the Honorable Mr. Volker Ending, former Consul General of Germany and Ambassador of Germany. We are waiting for all the consuls who will be here. Mr. Roberto Tagliero is here, and representing the Consul General of Italy, Mr. Adolfo Barattolo, who is over there. And we are also honored to have among our guests Mr. James Gavigan, who is here, the Minister Consular for Research and Innovation and the head of the Science, Technology and Innovation section at the Delegation of the European Union to the United States. This morning, we are honored to have excellent speakers, Dr. Irene Norstedt and Eerola. So one person, we are really in Europe today. So I'm going to have the honor to introduce him. Dr. Irene Norstedt is acting head of unit for the personalized medicines unit in the Health Research Directorate in DG Research and Innovation. She has been working with European life sciences research aspects at the European Commission since 1996. She was one of the key drivers for setting up the Innovative Medicines Initiative, IMI, a public-private partnership between the European Commission and the pharmaceutical industry. Previous responsibilities at the European Commission have primarily focused on small and medium-sized enterprise and industry aspects of biotechnology and health research at European level. Before starting her job in Brussels, she worked for Fiscal AD in Uppsala, Sweden. There, she had several positions, including business development for the drug discovery and food analysis, RIA, and technical services manager. She has also worked as assistant technical attaché at the Swedish Embassy in London. Mr. Eerola is a scientific projects officer in the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation, Directorate for Health in the unit for personalized medicine. He joined the Commission in 2004 and has been working on rare diseases since February 2012. He holds an MD and PhD from the University of Turku in Finland. He has done also an MBA at the United Business Institute in Brussels, Belgium. Before joining the Commission, he has worked in the Academy of Finland, in the Christian Dieu Institute of Cellular Pathology and Université Catholique de Bruxelles, Belgium, and at the University of Turkey, Finland. And now, without any further ado, I give you Dr. Irene Norstedt.
So, thank you very much, Christine, and thank you much, Caroline, as well, for hosting us here. It's a pleasure to see you all. It's a very nice opportunity for us. It's not so often that we come down here to Miami. We have been here for a two-day meeting on rare diseases, and I will tell you a little bit more about that before we go in and tell you a bit more about the type of work we do, the priorities for Europe, and in particular the health research area where we come from. So before I start my presentation, we will actually start by showing you a video that will exemplify how we see international cooperation in the area of research and innovation. It's one of the models for international cooperation that has been presented for the coming 7-year period, and we are very pleased to show you this video, which we think is a very good example of why we need to cooperate between countries, between nations, between disciplines.
When I was assigned this mission, I was puzzled at first. A consortium, rare diseases. I knew nothing about rare diseases. In fact, about 7,000 of them will affect almost 30 million people in the EU alone. 30 million, I thought. Wow. That's about 30 times the population of Brussels. I decided to start with Irene at the European Commission as she launched the idea. Impressive scientific background and a very busy person.
Bye-bye, Jane. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Bye. In fact, this was Jane Peterson from the NIH. And as we discussed before about how the idea came, it was in a discussion with Francis Collins that took place in May of 2010. He was intrigued, and as a consequence, by October, we had our Reykjavik meeting. Participating there, funding agencies, for instance, the Spanish funding agency was the first to join officially the consortium, small and large industry, charities, Association Française contre la Myopathie, or the Italian Teleton, and patient organizations, very importantly, discussing the goals of the consortium, 200 new therapies, and a diagnostic modality for most rare diseases by 2020. Quite an accomplishment.
Let's see. Many national agencies, all funding bodies in the executive committee, a clear presence of the private sector. Actually, whoever dedicates $10 million to research over 5 years can be part of a consortium. Right. The Spanish funding agency was the first to sign in. I will meet them first. Dr. De Andres strongly believes that participating in the consortium gives a higher dimension to Spanish public research in the field. As he didn't have much time, he introduced me to his colleague, Professor Segovia.
Well, the international consortium came in the right moment for us because we were building our national strategy on rare diseases, including research, including registries are part of this strategy, which was also part of the international initiative, which could provide us with much more effectiveness of our investment and to links so that the national strategy could be much more sustainable in time.
It makes sense having national research funding agencies in a consortium. But Roxandra also mentioned charities in the Italian telethon. I thought charities were just about raising money. I was wrong.
Teleton as a charity has a very important alliances with pharmaceutical and biotech companies because they have an essential and crucial role in developing the therapeutic approaches and bringing the results to patients. Other models are also important and possible. For instance, Geneton in France are developing their own facilities to develop their cures.
Geneton is a research and production center mostly funded by the AFM, the Association Française contre la Myopathie, an important fundraiser for medical research in France. I had to meet them.
The role of organizations like Geneton is crucial in this because they fill the gap between the academia, so the academic scientists that are driven by their desire to discover and innovate, and the industry that is not prepared, obviously, to take all the risks and all the investments they take to, from a good idea to a therapy that can be administered to patients.
Patients. Since I was in Paris, I went to meet Béatrice de Morleau from Eurordis, which represents more than 500 European patients' associations.
La voix des patients est vraiment essentielle dans un consortium mondial comme celui que nous sommes en train de créer. Pour nous, c'est absolument clé que les patients soient guéris. Donc 200 nouvelles thérapies d'ici 2020, c'est quelque chose de très important auquel j'attache mon attention.
Still, why would industry be interested in selling therapies to a very limited number of patients? The answer came with Ségolène and Amy when I visited Orphanet, another very impressive initiative which collects and shares on its websites all available data regarding more than 4,000 rare diseases in 38 countries.
In the past, pharmaceutical industry was only interested by blockbusters, but now they are shifting towards rare diseases because these diseases, which were often in the past, are now modern diseases and are driver of innovation.
To feel that sense of innovation, I went to see Prosensa, a young Dutch company working on RNA modification. They're also part of the consortium.
We do that through very solid and strong partnerships with a variety of players. On the one hand, with the academic groups, we license the technology from Leiden University Medical Center, but also working closely with patients who helped us to fund the company in the first years and with whom we still collaborate today, with venture capitalists who helped us to fund further steps in the development of the company, and last but not least with GlaxoSmithKline, who helps us now to bring these programs forward in a more accelerated and broader way, helping thereby patients on a global basis.
At that point, it was time to visit another big figure in the consortium. But they were on the other side of the ocean. The National Institutes of Health is the world's biggest national health agency funding rare disease research, and the co-founder of the consortium. Was there a more general interest to investigate rare diseases? I asked Jane Peterson.
There is a more general interest. It is, of course, important to try to understand the basis of the disease, but that gives us a lot more biological information about what the gene involved in the disease actually does in the human organism itself.
So, outcomes and innovations in the field of rare diseases could drive a shift in the way we tackle a lot more diseases. But still, millions of patients affected by rare diseases are waiting for a cure. That's why Genetic Alliance, a worldwide umbrella organization for patients' associations, had been invited to the consortium. I met Sharon Terry, the very dynamic president and CEO.
I expect the consortium not only to develop the drugs and diagnostics that it says it will, but also to make more efficient the model of drug development. Because right now it's very inefficient and costly, and we need something new. And I think working together, we can start to put together a pre-competitive space, a rather large commons, that allows us to learn from one another and to much more quickly develop drugs and therapies.
Thanks to Sharon, I was invited to visit Jana Monaco in a Washington suburb. Jana's 2 children are affected by isovaleric acidemia.
When Stephen was diagnosed at age 3.5 with his rare disorder, I was heartbroken and devastated because not only did he have the rare disorder, but we were also given the diagnosis of severe neurological insult as a result of late diagnosis. And what was compounding our devastation was the fact that this was preventable had he been screened for his condition at birth, just like our neighboring
Ordinary patient. She is the president of the very active Japan ALS Association. Their experience is priceless, as I learned from their director.
日本ではおよそ3割の患者さんが人工呼吸器をつけて生きていくことを選ぶんですけれども、それは欧米と違って大変ユニークだということになってますから、呼吸器をつけて生きていく上でのケアの仕方を皆さんと分かち合いたいと思っています。
Misao is like a prisoner in her own body, but her courage and way of being positive are really impressive. She communicates with an assistant reciting the Japanese alphabet, or by imperceptibly moving a toe to control her computer. I asked her about the consortium initiative. I knew the answer would be short, but it was conclusive. Let's fight together.
So, good morning.
Good morning.
Again. we are here in Miami. We have just met with the other founders of this consortium. We are currently 37 partners from 4 continents. And this is, I believe, one of the biggest international collaborative consortia we have, in which we are combining a number of different actors. So we are research funding bodies, we have industry, we have patients organizations, and we have foundations. It's quite a powerful way of working, and this is how we would like to see collaboration also in the future. So in addition to the traditional way we have collaborated on project level, we are starting to work on a much, much higher programmatic level to make sure that the research investments we do across the world actually has complementarity, and also that we can share data much better to make sure that we much, much faster can come to result in innovative solutions. So So the goal of this particular consortium is to, by 2020, have 200 new therapies for rare diseases and to be able to diagnose more rare diseases, most of the rare diseases. There are currently 6,000 to 8,000 rare diseases, and about 3,000 of them can currently be diagnosed. So this is quite a challenging goals that we have set to ourselves, and therefore is also the interest to cooperate and really try to reach these for these patients who are worldwide. This slide shows 34 committed members, and as you see there, we have 4 continents. We have a whole range from Europe. We have a lot of partners in the United States. We have also from Asia and Australia. And since we did this slide, we already have 3 more partners who have been into this consortium. But it's not the only consortia we have. We have a whole range of them, actually. And the ones that you are most familiar with are the International Cancer Genomics Consortia, which I believe was one of the first ones, where this was an agreement between different funders to go in and do the sequencing of different cancers and then start to share the data to make a much, much more efficient way of working together. We have the International Human Epigenome Consortia and the International Human Microbiome Consortia. One of the more recent ones is the International Initiative for Traumatic Brain Injury Research, which has been established this year, I believe. But it's also growing very quickly. And we also have one new on infectious disease preparedness and one on chronic diseases. So you see, this is a new way, we could say, of international cooperation, that we identify global challenges and then we come together and work on a programmatic level. So we identify common strategic goals, we agree to share the tasks, and then each one of us are issuing calls for proposals and fund research, but we... Is that better? Yep. Okay, sorry. And the fine thing with these consortia, why we like them so much, is that we don't put money into a pot. All who participate are using their own funding, research funding mechanism. And that is the strength of this consortium, is that we keep the administration to the minimum. And we only work on output orientation, and each of us are using the means that we have available and try to support those objectives. And of course, between the scientists group we agree on data sharing policies, IP policies, etc., to make sure that we can facilitate and how to share the data and work on standards. So that is sort of my introduction, and I will now move on to more a little bit about why we're here in Horizon 2020 and what we're going to do in the coming years. So one of the big differences, I believe, between Europe and the US is the way we have been programmatic. We work on 7-year programs, which means that we have a stable budget. We have a predictable budget over a 7-year period. Whereas I understand...
Maybe it's not that.
It's not me. It's something else. I'm just holding it. Sorry. Okay, we're fine. Okay, whereas here it's more on an annual basis. And this is very good for us because it gives us a predictability and we can plan quite far ahead and what we would like to do. Our review program will start in 2014 and as I said will run for 7 years and it will be called or is called Horizon 2020. It's still under negotiation between the European Member States and the European Parliament, but there is a general agreement. There is the fine-tuning of the budget, which I think is still ongoing, the final stages, and we are hoping to have a decision before the end of the year so that we can start to launch the calls as fast as possible towards the end of this year or next year. So the European Union, as you know, we have grown in July. We have become 28 countries with Croatia joining the EU, which means that we are now representing 500 million people. And the concept we have for the research programs is that we are pulling together the resources from these countries. It doesn't mean that these countries have their own funding programs. We have a complementarity in that respect with the EU funding program. The funding program is part of the bigger strategy of Europe, and we have something called Europe 2020, which is the growth strategy for Europe. This is the sort of highest political commitment we have in Europe to which all the member states have signed up for and that all of us are working towards, and Horizon 2020 is a program to contribute to this. There are different components of this strategy. It's about smart growth, better education, more research, greater use of communication technologies, sustainable growth, resource efficient, greener, and of course more competitive economy. Inclusive growth, more better jobs, investment in skills and training, modernization, labor markets, and welfare systems, and of course good economic governance, important in these times. So there are 5 headline targets. That we should have 75% employment rate, a 3% investment of research and development. This is a goal that we have had for quite some time. We still have some way to go. There are a few countries who are exceeding this already. And we are happy to say we represent 2 of them, Iiro, Finland and Sweden, are countries who are more in the range of 4 or 5. There are other countries who are very, very low. So there is still quite a lot of work to be done in Europe on that matter. We have energy targets, call them the 20-20-20. So it means 20% more energy efficiency, 20% reduction of greenhouse gases, and 20% of the energy should come from renewable materials. We would like to have a school dropout rate which is lower than 10%, and at least 40% of the population having completed tertiary education, and also, of course, to reduce the risk of poverty. And the framework program we have for research should also contribute to all of these different targets. One of the reasons we believe research is so important is that there is a direct correlation between investment in R&D as part of a solution to the financial crisis. It's not so easy to understand this figure, but you can see that there is direct correlation. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to say that I'm Swedish, and I see that Sweden is very high and Finland is very high on that one. And this is something which is also reflected in the budget we have for research at European level. Over the 30 years that we have had this type of framework programs, you can see the increase in the budget, and the foreseen annual budget for Horizon 2020 is in the range of 10 billion euros per year for the complete program. Some examples of big projects that have stemmed from the framework programs is CERN, ITER, which is the big international nuclear reactor, Galileo satellite system, Clean Sky on aeronautics, and IMI, Innovative Medicines Initiative. Horizon 2020 has a high number of different components. I will be focusing mainly on 3 of them, which is the societal challenges, we also have industrial leadership, and we have excellent science. I would say this is sort of the core of the framework programs, but through Horizon 2020 we are also bringing in a couple of other aspects because we are not so much focusing on research as we have done in the past. We are going much closer to the market, and therefore we also focus a lot more on the innovation aspects, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. So we have a program which also includes the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, which is a fairly recent institute. It's about 7 years, less, 5 years or so, and also the Commission's Joint Research Centre, and that is the European Commission's own research institute that are conducting research in support of policies. As I mentioned, I will focus on the 3 priorities: excellent science, industrial leadership, and societal challenges. So when we talk about excellent science, of course we would like to support world-class science because we see that's the foundation for the future. We need to develop, attract and retain the research talent that we have, and researchers should get access to the best infrastructures. So these are the different programs that we are using to support those objectives. We have the European Research Council that funds individual grants in a bottom-up scheme. We have something called Future and Emerging Technologies, which is really very visionary projects. We call them for FET, or FET flagship projects. Very innovative projects, very large-scale project. The funding can be in the range of €1 billion for really, say, blue sky, very visionary type of projects. In the health area, there has been one flagship selected, and that is on brain. For the Marie Curie actions, these are training and education, and I will come back to those a bit later, and also research infrastructures. Research infrastructure is, of course, a key element to support research worldwide, and we have a wide range of different research infrastructures that we are supporting. And one of the most important parts of the research infrastructures is, of course, the sustainability. There's no point to go in and set up a research infrastructure unless you can ensure that it will remain and be there. So we have special tools there in which the member states come together in supporting and to ensure the sustainability of those infrastructures. Industrial leadership is part of the program with investments in key technologies. We call them key enabling technologies. So this is where you will see a lot of the industrial type research. Advanced manufacturing, microelectronics, nanotechnologies, some of the basic biotechnology, etc. will be there that could underpin across a number of different sectors. This part of the program also will support a lot more private investment into research and innovation. And there are some new tools there in terms of kind of funding mechanisms where we closely work with the European Investment Bank and with the European Investment Fund to provide loans and other types of financing for companies who would like to use those facilities to grow. We will have a special program for SMEs, which is very similar to the SBIR program. And this is a complete novelty for Horizon 2020. It's the first time that we will go in and provide support to single companies. This has never been done in the previous programs. So I already went through what I've just said here. So there are 3 different parts. One is more the traditional collaborative research that we do, access to finance, and the innovation investments. We come to the societal challenges, which are very much global issues that we are really looking to cooperate to resolve. Climate, environment, health, of course, is one of those. And this is also where we see a lot of need for multidisciplinarity. You will need to bring in a lot of different actors and languages to actually solve those problems. And of course, we would like to go the whole way, not just to fund the research, but also the innovation, the piloting, and the scaling up to apply those into society. So these are the different types of programs. Iiro and I come from the first one, Health, Demographic Change and Wellbeing. So Iiro will tell you a little bit more about that later. We also have the food security, sustainable agriculture, marine maritime research, bioeconomy, secure, clean, efficient energy, smart, green, integrated transport, climate actions, resource efficiency and raw materials, inclusive, innovative and secure societies. So the way we go about to fund research, I would say that the core of our activities is through collaborative research projects. And I think this is one of the strengths of the European program. And the idea is to bring together different actors. And we have a minimum rule that you need to have actors from at least 3 European countries. The program is open for anybody across the world to participate. But there has to be at least 3 European partners, and then in addition we can accept anybody from the world. We have more and more activities where we could go and fund single entities. I already mentioned the SME instrument, where we will have something which is very similar to the SBIR scheme, with a small feasibility grant of 50,000 euros, and then a bigger grant that you can get for the proof of principle, and from there you can go in to this loan mechanism or the equity mechanism. We will, of course, we have done for many years, supported a lot of training and mobility, and I think that is also something which is very interesting for you, that facilitates the move into Europe and vice versa. We also work with a high number of coordination and support actions, so that is not necessarily research as such, but it could be to bring together different stakeholders around a different theme, to organize conferences, to develop research agendas, etc., that we later on can look at when we go in and decide our funding priorities. We also work a lot in another type of partnerships, and those are public-public partnerships, which means that we go in partnership with the different European member states and pool our resources, and we set up specific legal entities that actually implement those programs. We also have public-private partnerships, and on the 10th of July, in 2013, we actually proposed a very big, what we call the Innovation Investment Package, in which we present 10 such partnerships, either public-private, public-public partnerships, we call them P2Ps, or PPPs, public-private partnerships. And each one of them has, of course, a very specific dedicated focus. The idea is to implement those through dedicated legal entities, and the idea is to be able to pool resources from different actors. You have examples in medicines, in aeronautics, energy, bio-based economy, which is the green biotechnology, electronics, air traffic control, clinical trials for developing countries, metrology, Eurostars is for small companies, and active and assisted ambient living. So you see it's a wide variety there, and we can provide you with more information with each one of them. So it means that each one of those has a specific legal entity, and that legal entity will then launch calls for proposals, which provides other opportunities to come together and work and be funded from those programs. I wanted to mention the what we used to call Marie Curie actions. Now they're called Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions, which is a very, very large program for training and education. They have different type of grants. I'm not going to go through them in detail. You have a little overview there, and I'm sure that James can provide you with a lot more information about these different grants if you are interested. I also mentioned before the European Research Council, which supports really frontier science, very bottom-up engaged area. It is completely competitive based. Best science is funded, and it's also open for US participants. I've included this slide, it's not so clear maybe, but it just gives you flavor of all the different types of areas they're finding. It's a very, very broad and open and very interesting program. I will hand over to Iiro, who will continue to talk more specifically about health research, and then after his presentation we're happy to take any questions that you
Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So my part of the presentation will focus on EU-funded health research. So I'm first going to describe briefly what has been done in FP7 health program. We will look at the US participation in there. And then I will give you the perspective for future in Horizon 2020. And then I will give you some basics how to participate in Horizon 2020 projects. So FP7 is actually the largest multinational fund which supports collaborative research, global consortia, and public-private cooperation. I will show some examples of all three types of activities in a short while. It's funding excellent applied health research and innovation. There has been a shift towards applied research during the recent years, and we are funding more and more clinical trials nowadays by the program. International collaboration is really an integral part of the program. FP7 brings indeed together leading players not only from Europe but across the globe. And the aim of the program is to tackle key European and global health challenges. FP7 is coming to the end this year actually, and the last calls for proposals have been closed. So we can actually present some almost final figures concerning the funding going to the theme. So we have funded 6 billion euros have been invested to 1,000 research projects, which bring together 11,000 research teams in 3,500 organizations located in 130 countries. So the coverage is very global. As the program started already in 2007, close to 300 projects have already finished. So we can present some results which came out from them. 200 patent applications came out from the projects, 9,000 publications with the average SJR index of 3.3, and 30 spin-offs created on the basis of the project. So of course there are a lot of projects which are only starting now, which will run for another 3 to 5 years. Majority of funding goes to collaborative projects, as mentioned by Irene, and here you have one example of such a project, TREAT-OA, which aims at developing better treatment and diagnosis for osteoarthritis. EU contribution for this project is almost 12 million euros for the consortium involving 11 participants, including this Diagenics, which is a Belgian biotech company. And this project has helped them to develop their lead product, ControSelect, for the treatment of osteoarthritis. And this project is a good example showing that the EU health research projects can deliver results for the patients. EU-funded research plays also a very important role in concentrating and pulling together scarce resources, like in the field of rare diseases, where we typically have very small patient populations in individual countries. So there, international collaboration has a clear added value. This AlphaMan project is developing a treatment for patients suffering from alpha-mannosidosis, it's a rare disease. They are working on enzyme replacement therapy, which is now in clinical trials, and this is funded by the project. Our projects can also coordinate efficiently research which aim at very ambitious objectives, which can be achieved only at the European or even global level. And as Irene mentioned, the EU is actively contributing to several such international consortia, and here you have one example. We are funding a very large project called Blueprint, which coordinates the European participation in the International Human Epigenome Consortium, and they aim at characterizing 1,000 epigenomes from different human cell lines. Another big initiative already mentioned by Irene is the Innovative Medicines Initiative. So this is a public-private partnership between the European Union and the Pharmaceutical Industry Association, EFPIA. So the aim of this initiative is to speed up the development of better and safer medicines by removing research bottlenecks in the drug development process. Both the EU and the industry have committed to invest 1 billion euros to support collaborative research projects and also networks of experts to boost innovation in this area. So IMI brings together various stakeholders, not only pharmaceutical industry, but also small and medium-sized enterprises, universities and hospitals, also regulatory agencies and patient organizations to address some of the most pressing and complex health issues like diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. 37 projects have been launched in the areas of safety and efficacy, also in knowledge management and education and training. As mentioned by Irene, the continuation of IMI is also in the pipeline. So the Commission has started the legislative process to adopt, to establish to continue this initiative also in Horizon 2020. I also want to mention EDCTP, which is European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership. This aims to accelerate the development of new or improved drugs, vaccines, microbicides and diagnostics against HIV, malaria and tuberculosis. This is joint programming between European national research programs. And the overall budget is 400 million euros. Half of it comes from the EU and another half from the member states. EDCTP is funding primarily phase 2 and 3 clinical trials on HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria. You can see in this slide that a number of clinical trials have been launched. But it also contributes to capacity development and networking, creating an enabling environment for conducting these clinical trials in sub-Saharan Africa. So the continuation of this initiative is also expected in Horizon 2020, and there the plan is to broaden the scope to neglected infectious diseases and expand from clinical trials to diagnostics and delivery optimization. And also already 16 European countries have committed to spend about 600 million on the EDCTP2, and there would be then matching co-funding coming from Horizon 2020. So then let's look at the US participation in the FP7 Health. You can see in the slide that participation has been growing throughout FP7. There are altogether 152 US participants in our projects. In recognition of the opening of the NIH programs to European participants, US participants can receive funding from FP7 health goals. And as a result, 51 million euros are committed to US participants in these projects. And here in this slide you can see the main US participating organizations. These are mainly universities and hospitals. The University of California is the leader with 10 participations. I actually went out to our project database to see Florida participants from Florida, and I found 2 projects. University of Miami is participating in this Best Cilia project, which is a collaborative research project working on primary ciliary dyskinesia. It's again a rare disease causing progressive loss of lung function. And the main goal of the project is to characterize the clinical cause and improve the diagnosis and treatment of these patients. And this is done in a collaborative project involving participants from 9 different countries.
Dr. Eerola,
Yep.
we have the person in charge of the project who is here, Dr. Quitner, and someone will make a
We will hear more about it.
Thank you.
So there is also another project involving participants from Florida. This is IDEA project in which it's there the Vaccine and Gene Therapy Institute Florida is involved. This is a truly international collaboration involving 6 EU countries, 5 African countries, and then the US participant. They are working on dissecting the immunological interplay between COVID-related diseases and the Helminth-Worm infection. And the EU contribution to this large consortium is about 10 million euros. Let's then look at briefly what are the plans for health research in Horizon 2020. So this program is expected to start in the end of this year, in the beginning of 2014 at the latest. So the health research will be centered around these challenges which are listed on the slide. So it's starting from understanding health, well-being and disease, preventing, treating and managing diseases, activating and self-management of health is an important challenge. Also methods and data, healthcare provision and integrated care. And the research to be funded will bring solutions to these main challenges and thereby help moving towards more effective and safe health interventions which then could be taken up by the healthcare system. So then a couple of words about how to participate in our projects. So we expect that there will be on the average about 1 billion euros devoted to health research per year. And US organizations can participate in the projects. That's clear. And we expect that this mutual opening of the research programs will also continue in Horizon 2020. That would then mean that funding would be available for US participants, but this is to be still confirmed with the legislative process. So, as mentioned by Irene, the minimum rule is that you have at least 3 partners from 3 different EU countries in a research consortium, but in addition to that, anyone else from anywhere in the world can participate. These projects typically durate from 3 to 5 years, and the plan is to open the first call in December already this year. should I then go for EU funding? So definitely the EU projects provides an opportunity to build a strong network with top EU organizations and scientists. These are very multidisciplinary consortia. So it's a possibility to share complementary knowledge and experience. I mentioned that the funding levels are quite substantial, so it's a possibility to receive funding for your research. You can also get first-hand experience with EU businesses and healthcare markets in the projects. And why not discovering Europe, the culture, art, food and wines as well. So how to apply? You have to respond to a call for proposals. You need to identify a topic, a research topic, which corresponds with your own research idea. You need to be in a consortium of minimum 3 European participants from 3 different EU countries. In all proposals there is a coordinator which then coordinates writing and submission of the proposal, and then hopefully then in the end you get funded. I must say that the competition is very tight here, so the success rate has been around 10%. So how to find a partner for your project? You can get some support from National Contact Point. It's a very broad network in different countries. There are 2 specific EU-funded projects which provide the service of partner search. This is Fit for Health and Health Competence, and also IMI has their own partnering platform. And I want to close with this slide saying that we are constantly looking for experts to help us with the evaluation of proposals. We are using a lot of experts from North America. So if you are interested in taking up this task, please fill in your profile in the dedicated database. Or please spread out this information to your collaborators and networks. So basically this was all what I wanted to say. So thank you very much for the attention, and maybe we will take some questions here.
Everything is clear. Everybody's going to apply.
Actually, I had a question that exudes a little bit from the theme that you presented, but I'm curious as to why you chose Miami, as you obviously have a lot of partners in the rest of the states. And secondly, can you share what meetings you've had in the days prior to this, and what would be your goal with this?
Okay. In this International Rare Diseases Research Consortium, we have an executive committee in which all the funding members are participating, and which means that there's about 35 people coming to these type of meetings. We have sort of a rotating scheme, as you have seen, that we are partners from around the world, which means that we are trying to spread the meetings. So far we have been either North America and Europe. Eventually we will move to Asia and Australia, potentially. So the reason why we came to Miami was that this was what our colleagues from the NIH proposed. We have met in Bethesda before in Washington, and they proposed that this time we would actually meet in Miami. There is a conference facility in a military camp in northern Miami, and this is where we have held our meeting the last 2 days. What has been on the agenda has been to discuss future plans. We're looking at the policies that sort of governs the projects that we are all funding, subscribe to those policies and how to share data, etc. As you saw from the video, the governance is so that we have an executive committee, as I mentioned, with those representing the funders, and then we have scientific committees who works on the scientific and technical level and identifies, the areas where we need to act at a global level to facilitate the cooperation. So that could be in how to develop standards for data storage, facilitate how data can be shared between scientists participating in these projects. And it's also about identifying where are the biggest bottlenecks in research, and that helps us as research funders how we can steer the research funding in the future to try to cover those gaps in the research. So this is what we have been discussing over these last 2 days.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what is your typical partner? Is it rather a research facility like a university and so on, or also large hospital systems with more applied science? I'm asking this question because I'm a member of the Ethics in Research Board of the largest hospital system in South Florida, Baptist Health, South Florida. And there is, of course, a lot of research going on, and we have to approve all research in my board. Would that also be an appropriate partner if it is rather a hospital system with research, or is it really research institutions like scientific institutions?
We have a variety of different partners. We started off as research funding bodies. So the European Commission and NIH were the instigators of this particular initiative. And then through time, a number of different partners has come in. So we also have, you have seen foundations, which also invest in research or conduct research. We have an American research institution called Stanford Research in North Dakota, who is a member. The ticket, so to say, to become a member of the executive committee is that you need to invest $10 million in rare disease research over a 5-year period. If you do that, you fill out a commitment letter that you send to the chair. The current chair is Paul Lasko from the Canadian Institutes for Health Research. And you say that we would like to be members. We subscribe to contribute with research to reach those goals, and we would like to collaborate with you. So if you feel that your hospital institute will fall into that category, you're very welcome to apply for becoming a member. If you don't come up to this $10 million per 5 years, you can come together with other partners, and you come as a group of partners, because we would like to be as inclusive as possible, but we have to limit the number of participants in the management, so to say, of this consortium. So therefore you can come together with how many you like and say, we would like to come as a group of partners. We have one such group for time being, which is a consortium of smaller European countries that has come together, and they go and co-fund research in this area, and they say we come as a group together. So there are several opportunities there to come in. Yeah.
I can only express my high respect for this initiative. I was in Hong Kong 10 years ago during the SARS outbreak, and what I thought was very impressive was the way in which, on an international level, everybody was contributing and joining forces to find out what was the background and the nature of this new virus, SARS, in Hong Kong. Everybody was working very intensively on this question. My question goes to the benefits. I mean, first and foremost, we think of the benefits for the patients, of course. On the second level, there is, after everybody joining forces and sharing results and research methods, you find out the background, you identify the genome, then you work on a vaccine, and this is the point where industry comes into the game. How do you deal with these questions of competition in the business level when it comes to, basically, I don't want to be critical, but when it comes to making money?
Yeah.
I know that many scientists have ultimate goals to get international recognition, just talking of the Nobel Prize.
Yes.
And if there is an emergency situation, they step out and say, okay, this is an emergency case, we have to share everything that we have. How do you deal with that gap somehow?
So first, on your first aspect, so to say, about the value of this type of consortia, I think, and you mentioned SARS there and other infectious diseases, there is an additional benefit to work through these type of consortia, and that is that when you would have emerging situations, we know each other already, which means that we have networks between research funders and between scientists that can come into force very quickly, that we can say that, does anybody know anything or is working on anything about that? And we can quite quickly sort of put into motion to find the information that we need in response to those kind of emerging situations. So it has a lot of additional benefits. One of the additional benefits we have of working together for rare disease is, you have seen that we come from the personalized medicine unit, and that is that we also see rare disease as a model for personalized medicine, which is an area which is coming slowly but surely throughout, and we believe that rare disease is a very good model. So by understanding much more about rare diseases, where I think it's more than 90% are single gene defects, we actually learn a lot more also about the common diseases. So there's a lot of learnings and additional benefits from working together in this area that we hope we're going to sort of harvest the fruits from in the years to come. In this particular consortium, we also have private sector. So we are saying that anybody who invests more than $10 million over a 5-year period can come in, which means that also industry is participating in these type of consortia. And we do that because it's in this particular area, it's very, very important to work together with industry because they are the ones who will bring the therapies to the market. Where we go in and fund research, through the grant agreement, as you call it, the contract that we sign with the research consortia we fund, we have IPR rules included into that consortium, and that governs sort of between the partners in that consortium how to deal with that. And it's always the right to first, what do you call it, the first to 5, always I can't express myself now in English. Is the traditional rule that the one who files the patents and is the owner, and then you can share for research use, etc. When we come to these developments, it means that if you want to bring forward into commercialization, you give a license to somebody. So it's a negotiation that will take place there in between. So we are in a balance between the public good in terms of sharing data and information, and there it's more the pre-competitive space, as we call it, where you want to share as much data as possible in a horizontal manner, and then if you would like to commercialize that, you go vertical with that, and then you will need to find your ways in the IP regime, so to say, with looking who has the patent, your license agreements, etc., and going to commercialization.
So I understand that as long as possible you work on a kind of an open source basis.
Yeah, for the basic science, yes, it's necessary in this field because it's something that everybody benefits from. Yeah.
Okay. We are going Professor of Psychology and Pediatrics at the University of Miami. She received a Lifetime Achievement Award, the Dr. Richard Nagano Clinical Research Award from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation in 2008. Was named a Cooper Fellow at the University of Miami 2009-2012 and was just awarded the Provo Research Scholar Award 2011-2012 at her university. She graduated with her PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Western Ontario, Canada, in 1987. Her research focuses on the measurement of adherence and health-related quality of life in children and adolescents with chronic illnesses. She has developed a health-related quality of life measure for cystic fibrosis, the CFQR, which has been translated into 34 languages. and is being used in international clinical trials. She is conducting a transnational study of an adherence interventions of 18 CF centers in the US, eye care, eye change, adherence and raise expectation, to improve adherence in adolescents. In addition, she is leading an international epidemiological study of depression in children and adults with cystic fibrosis and parents caregivers. Other area of research is the effects of cochlear implant surgery on young children's cognitive, social and behavioral development. She has been continuously funded by NIH and also granted agencies over the past 23 years and has published over 120 articles and book chapters.
Thank you very much. So I'm very grateful to the European Health Commission, and actually I'm delighted to be here today to talk about my own very small example of being funded by this FP7 mechanism, which I was not so aware of. And so I'm very pleased that you're coming to talk more about this FP7 and this whole process of integrating across Europe and the United States. I think it's a fantastic idea. So first of all, this came from the observational trial in rare diseases, which is one of the sections they described to you earlier. And our grant is called Best Cilia, which is an excellent title because it's about how cilia beat in our bodies. So better experimental screening and treatment for primary ciliary dyskinesia, which I'm sure you've never heard of, PCD. It's a very rare disease. This FP7 is going to put this disease on the map. I guarantee this, and we're already moving progress in this disease forward because of this collaboration. So I wanted to show you the countries involved and the universities involved in our Best Cilia project. And you can see it covers many European countries, but interestingly also like Cyprus and Greece and Poland, so a really good range of countries. There are 2 of us in the United States working on this project. A colleague of mine who's a pulmonologist at UNC Chapel Hill, and then myself here at the University of Miami. We're the only 2 people in the US that are part of this project. Much of it is being done in Europe. Now, what's exciting about the European grant that we got is that we are also at UNC Chapel Hill working on a huge NIH program project grant in PCD. And this is giving us a chance to go back and forth and integrate our findings across these 2 funding agencies, which in a rare disease is absolutely critical. So I thought I would show you all the different countries on the map that are represented in our FP7. And this has been just a fantastic collaboration. So you can see, molecular biology, we're drawing in geneticists, pulmonologists, behavioral scientists, a very wide range of researchers. And here is just the 2 of us in the United States. We're a smaller part. So I just tell you for a minute about PCD. It's genetically very heterogeneous. We have no idea what genes are controlling this disease at this point. But this is one of the goals of our FP7, to begin to identify these genes. It is very rare, 1 in 20,000. So you can see that without having many countries participating, there's no way any one country, including the US, would be able to get enough patients to make rapid progress. So I see the FP7 and this European Health Commission NIH collaboration as really moving science forward, particularly in rare diseases, where you cannot access a population you need to make good progress. So it's really can be a very devastating disease. It is a dysfunction of the cilia that beat in various parts of the body. And so it's really very difficult to diagnose. In North America, there are only 7 centers that are currently diagnostic centers for this disease. So just being able to understand how to better diagnose this disease will move the field forward. Many children are struggling with this pulmonary disease for many, many years. It's misdiagnosed as cystic fibrosis or asthma, and therefore they're not getting good treatment, and therefore their disease is progressing and getting worse. So I wanted to tell you it's chronic airway disease, progressive loss of lung function. Also, the cilia in the ears do not beat adequately, and so you have lots of thick secretions in the ears, which eventually can cause hearing loss. Some of our children have hearing aids as a result. Also, in about 50% of these patients, the organ systems are completely reversed, situs inversus, so the heart, etc., is on the other side of the body. Now imagine if you were in a serious car accident or you're in an emergency health situation and you do not realize that you have PCD and situs inversus. You could clearly get some very problematic health care in that situation. So it's a very complex disease. We don't understand a lot about it, but it can have devastating consequences. So the European Respiratory Society initially funded a task force at ERS, and this group met for 3 years planning the proposal that they made to the FP7 mechanism. So they were representatives from this task force and bringing in a couple of people like myself from the United States to put together this grant mechanism. And they chose to include me because I've been developing systematic health-related quality of life measures in various rare diseases. And this enables patients to report on their symptoms. And we are able to test new drugs and see whether, in fact, those drugs reduce respiratory symptoms like cough, mucus production, and difficulty breathing. So I have been involved in clinical research for 23 years, and I've been working in many different areas. So cystic fibrosis is actually quite closely aligned to primary ciliary dyskinesia, also a very serious genetic pulmonary disease. I've also developed a new tool in non-CF bronchiectasis and also disorders of sex development. This is very interesting. The FDA, our Food and Drug Administration, as well as the EMA in Europe, are now willing to accept patient-reported symptom measures as primary or secondary outcomes in clinical trials. And for PCD, we really don't have good objective measures, and symptom reports may be very important outcomes. So developing these endpoints is very important, and we were able to use this to get a new inhaled antibiotic approved by the FDA called Casten for cystic fibrosis. So the aims of the FP7 characterize the clinical phenotypes, the severity, the progression of the disease, establish an international perspective and a PCD registry. So a prospective registry in which all of these countries will put data in on the characteristics of their patients. We want to standardize diagnostic testing in Europe, and we need to standardize it in the United States as well, and identify the relevant genotypic-phenotypic relationships and which genes are most likely involved in this disease. We're working on this quality of life measure, and what's nice about the FP7 is we've worked on this as an international measure right from the beginning, collaborating with Europe and the US. In my prior work, I was developing the measures in the US, and then they were translated into European languages. And I think this is a far better way to approach it. And then we will be performing the very first randomized controlled trial of a drug for PCD. There has never been an RCT to test a drug to see if it works in patients with this disease, and we are planning this randomized controlled trial, actually using azithromycin, which is a generic medication that's widely available, but for its anti-inflammatory properties. So just very quickly, the tool we are developing will allow us to understand more about the course of the disease, to examine how age, gender, and disease severity affect health outcomes. It will give us information on the most frequent and difficult symptoms children, adolescents, and adults experience, track symptoms over the time, use this as an endpoint in clinical trials, as well as during routine medical visits to track patients' progress and symptoms. So this tool could really help move the field forward in a number of ways. The countries involved in the RCT are Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, and the UK. And of course, we need many countries because of the rarity of the disease to get a sufficient sample size. So we've been working on this measure. We've been conducting lots of interviews, open-ended cognitive testing, and pilot testing of the instrument. And we will have a completed international set of measures by the end of December. And the clinical trial should start in the spring of next year. And we're doing our final preparations and planning for that. And then we will take them and translate these instruments into the other countries of interest. So that's essentially our FP7 project, and I have to say thank you again to the European Health Commission. This is going to move this field forward very rapidly because of our ability to collaborate and to gather such a large number of patients in such a challenging disease. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any question and answers for Dr.
Yes.
Kuchner?
I have a question regarding the ability to communicate effectively between the different researchers. Having difficulty with human languages is tough enough. Is there is everything in textual format, or do you have like chemical symbols or something, some other means of expressing a lot of the concepts which are communicated?
That's a great question. One of the things that I think is a huge benefit coming from the United States is most of science is in English. So all of our meetings are in English, and fortunately Europeans are great at languages, and they grow up speaking many languages, including English. So everything in science is done in English, and of course this is very helpful for us to come over and collaborate with the Europeans. But they are very competent English speakers. And the symbols are universal in terms of science, and all of sort of the research design and the protocols we develop are in English first, agreed upon in English, and then translated into the relevant languages. Actually, the language barrier is really not a very big problem. I do lots of studies in Europe and work with European colleagues all the time, and this is the least of our problems. It works well.
What is the most difficult things for applying to a grant like that?
Well, the mechanism is different from ones I'm used to. I mean, I've been funded by the National Institutes of Health. This is an application process that I'm very familiar with. The FP7 is a different process, but the Europeans know how to do it quite well. They have people who help to develop the proposals to a certain level. The scientists, we all contribute our information, but they actually use, I don't know, do you call them rapporteurs, or you use, I don't know the term, but there are people who help you to put it into the right format, which was very helpful for us. So the bureaucratic part is facilitated by someone who understands the bureaucracy. In my case, it's Oliver Panzer, but I'm not sure exactly, what his title is. But it was quite easy for me to plug my science into the FP7 proposal. I am one of the work packages among these six packages. So it actually worked really well. Without this funding, we would not be able to continue this work, at least what we're doing here on the U.S. side.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Dr. Gavigan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Gavigan, do you have anything to add as well?
Maybe just a few general remarks.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just a few general remarks. First of all, I'm delighted to be here, thanks to my colleagues' visits from Brussels and to the facilitation of the organization of this by yourself and your colleagues. I just want to say that you've had, I think today, a fantastic sampling of what it is we're trying to do in research in Europe, what it is we are trying to do in terms of the international cooperation dimension, which is, if you like, an increasingly important frontier for us. And so just to stress on the European-US dimension of this, this is by far the most important, if you like, axis of cooperation for Europe, and where we are looking on average, I think, to try to increase the cooperation in terms of numbers of participations from the US by a factor of 2 as we go into Horizon 2020. So we really are trying to push the cooperation with the United States at all the levels you've heard, at the level of individual projects, at the level of programs, and at the level of global societal and other challenges. And I just to mention, or just to leave you with, a re-emphasis of some of the things my colleague says. As you take whatever you take from this meeting into your respective day-to-day work and constituencies and so on, please bear in mind that this program is a very vast and wide program. You've heard a strong emphasis on health, but it covers, as you saw in some of the slides and which will be available, practically all of the areas of technology and science that are that are important nowadays, across the board. And so, therefore, we will be looking, and one of my role in the EU delegation in Washington will be to take the message about Horizon 2020 out across the United States. It's not yet in a formal promotion campaign mode yet, because everything is still subject to the finalizing of the legislation. So this is like a sneak preview of what it is that's in preparation. And I think just another very pertinent point, which probably carries more relevance at the level of government and agencies, but I think also with the scientists, is the fact that in Europe, the budget at EU level for science, innovation and technology is increasing, in spite of the fiscally constrained environment we live in. Here in the United States, because of sequestration and difficult fiscal situation, the budget for science is decreasing. This, I think, is a very significant message to take to our US counterparts at all of those different levels, agency, university, science, firms, and so on. One of the other things that was mentioned as well is that there's a strong, now increasing emphasis on innovation in the program. And this leads us to look to more and more cooperation, not just with university-based research teams, but also with industry, firm-based research teams. And so this is something that I just mentioned as will be part of the message that we'll be taking forward with the United States as we engage in our promotional campaign. So I just wanted to say a few remarks from my side on that. You have my name on the program. If needs be, I can be a relay point for any queries, questions that you may have in relation to this, back to my colleagues in Brussels where the detailed expertise lies. We will be developing our own local expertise as much as we can, but we won't be able to handle all of the detailed questions. So, is that okay?
That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much to our prestigious guests today. Thank you very much, Dr. International Eerola and Dr. Gavigan. Thank you for our doctor who just left because she was in a hurry. Thank you to everybody for participating today. On behalf of Caroline Rendezvous, she had another meeting. I want again to thank you very much. Thanks to her, we had this concert today to organize our event at the Miami Innovation Center. We are looking forward to having you for our next events. And as you see, we are partnering with the European Commission, the European Delegation. We are here to facilitate you with all the projects in science, innovation, research. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you.